Hello! I don't really have an intro, so I'm just gonna have to start this video. I'd like to preface first that I am very sorry for the angle that the speed paint is, because it's not supposed to be that way, but I forgot to record it horizontal, so there's that. Starting off, Sam and Max has been something that I come back to very frequently. I usually get very, very interested in stuff, and I do that when I come to appreciate an artist's work a lot. The difference is, once I leave a fandom, I usually don't tend to come back, and if I do, it's not as enthusiastic. But Sam and Max is different. I've appreciated Steve Purcell's work through his games, comics, and the television show. And I've done this for the past 5 years, so to say the least, I am very, very passionate about his work of art. My first viewing of the Devils Playhouse was through a gameplay where I sat through all 8 hours, loving every joke and overcomplicated descriptions Sam used to interpret his thoughts. I originally viewed the ending and felt a little off. Our buddy Max wasn't the Max we had spent the last 2 seasons bugging off and fighting senseless crime with, and I really didn't feel okay with it. Eventually, the remaster, which came out this past August by Skunk Ape, was available on the Switch. Of course, I eagerly bought it and began it with my cousin. To begin, the new season is wonderful. The new areas and ways of travel, especially including a similar gameplay to the Sam and Max Hit the Road game in episode 1, was really, really cool. You can explore everything way more in depth, especially when the abundance of powers Max has are in use. These could bring us into the future or turn us into whatever we wanted with his special little putty. The quality was also just so much more bright, and I found it distinctively more colorful than the original, even seeing an article about the same subject a few months after the release. Of course, the music accompanying our gameplay was as beautiful as ever. Jared Emerson Johnson never disappoints. I really obsess over just how amazing every piece is. Some of my favorites, of course, being the 2 that play in the ending scenes to the very last episode, Letting Go and So Wanna Stop Some Crimes. Moving on from my thoughts on the game itself, leading up to the ending, or really the 2 endings, we of course play as Sam, who we run around as trying to in any way possible figure out how we can save the world, as the original title suggested, whilst also saving his best friend, the one thing he loves most. Of course, the first option was to rid Max of the growing tumor inside of him, which was induced in dark matter. And when that plan ultimately fails, we are left wondering what we have to do next. And in all truth, there is nothing. We, the player, getting the first-hand experience of Sam, who without special powers such as Max is weak and can't do anything, is stuck. This is referenced earlier on in the season as well, when Max reads Sam's mind and we hear his very own thought. And I quote, "Now that Max has these new powers, he won't need me anymore." End quote. We also get a glimpse of this as Charlie Hotep possesses Sam's hand, even going as far as reassuring him that he is only being used for the birth of the monster that Max fuses with. Nearing the end of the episode, as Sam is trying to think of anything he can to fix his problem, we come to a split in the road. Sybil, who has been pregnant for the last few episodes, needs to give birth. And it is really amazing how bad timing just fits right into this game all of the time. Max, in this state he's in, gets a hold of Sam and lets him know he should help Sybil and leave the rest to him. And this ends with him getting struck with a Mimetron's rocket, and as that happens, he teleports himself to Skunk Ape's ship with his powers, where he then sacrifices himself, as well as Skunk Ape and others on the ship, to save his pal in the world. Now, as before, I mentioned there being 2 different endings to our story. One being the adventure ending, and the other being the crime-fighting ending. and you choose which one you'd prefer in a conversation with Sybil earlier on. I'd like to discuss my thoughts on both separately, starting off with the adventure ending, of course. We get that walk of misery that Sam does at the beginning in both clips, but in the adventure ending, as he reaches the ledge looking over the water, he places his hat down on the ledge and stares, smiling. Now, I'd like to think that this is symbolizing his send-off from the freelance police, and also showing his respect to Max, who just blew up, right? So, the turn of events for this, because obviously there's one of those, Max shows up in the time-traveling elevator from Season 2. Now, this is great! He's here! After all of the trouble that Sam went to trying to get him back, he's just here. Now, I really think the conversation these two have right after Sam realizes not all hope is lost and his friend is back is great. Sam asks where the other version of him is, to which Max replies with something along the lines of Sam turning into this giant monster and the only way to save the world was to blow him up, which is exactly what happened to Max in this world. Max says that in his usual, hey, that was so funny, please let's move on way, and it leaves Sam to contemplate if he really is ready to move on. We see Max feel some remorse here after he says what he does, wondering if he had ruined the moment. And after some silence, he brings the conversation back, offering to fight some crimes. Sam obviously agrees, and they get in the elevator and hit the road. That is until the camera pans out to the ocean and the ledge Sam left his hat on. We hear the elevator arrive back, and Sam reaches out to grab it, securing his spot in what was originally about to be him leaving the freelance police. With that being said, this ending is really nice. I love the fact he comes back to reclaim his hat and how the two restore what was lost in each other's lives, leaving side by side. Now, the crime-fighting ending is not too different from the adventure one. The dialogue is pretty much the same, except when Sam reaches the ledge overseeing the ocean, he takes off his hat and inevitably puts it back on his head, again smiling and assumingly showing respect to his pal. We again hear the elevator park itself behind Sam, and when he turns around to see what he was hearing, we actually, instead of seeing nothing at first glance, we see Max standing inside as if waiting for Sam to notice. We go through that same conversation about the alternate Sam, but instead of them getting into the elevator and leaving, they walk off into the sunset doing their usual banter about the next monsters they'll fight. Now, in my opinion, I really do like the crime-fighting ending a lot more. Getting to hear the two getting along just as they did before was refreshing, and it felt a lot like what I originally was expecting. So here are some final thoughts I have on the ending, which amount to a lot more than you'd think, so bear with me. The ending to Sam and Max, The Devil's Playhouse, was very fulfilling. It reached an ending we really fought for and thought wouldn't originally happen. This ending to our final season came with 3 big things. One was hope. Hope played such a big role in the ending. Sam never stopped hoping there would be a good outcome, and when he originally lost Max after he sacrificed himself, he gathered some of Max's DNA to be replicated by Miss Bosco to bring him back. This unfortunately didn't work as Max's DNA was too difficult to replicate, and just as he was starting to lose spirit, the new alternate Max sprang into his lifetime and brought back what Sam really needed, creating a new hope for their future. Number 2, although the ending was very emotional, there was always that comedic effect that Sam and Max always had thrown throughout the last episode. It worked its way in through every crack it could. That being said, even though our usual comedic relief, Max, was trapped within a hideous monster, we still got a glimpse of his annoyingly comedic flaming Max heads, which did the joking for him. This providing us with a wonderful mix of depth and emotion alongside a good laugh. My final big thing was the emotion. I can't speak for everyone when I say this, but I'm sure you'd agree with me when I say that throughout the duration of the last episode, we have felt every last drop of hope, anger, sadness, and grief that Sam goes through trying to get back Max. There was also Max sacrificing himself for everyone else despite being taken away from his best friend. And all of this not only do we get to see affecting the characters in game, but we too feel it as the story progresses. There is actually something that made me very emotional, and that was despite Max's reluctancy to admit his loyalty to his partner, he ultimately searches probably many timelines where Sam is alive with him, because in all reality, they grounded each other perfectly. Their humors, their way of fighting together, the way they bounced off of each other for support through every single one of their adventures. It was never meant to be just Sam or Max, but Sam and Max. And that's why the ending for the Devils Playhouse was so well done. We get to see not only Sam's perspective, but also Max's perspective, and get to grow alongside the challenges they both face. Obviously, one being more physical than the other. And even after learning just how hard it would be for Sam to go on without his best friend, we end up with a resolution that not only faces that, but gives us a satisfying conclusion, even after learning why exactly the alternate Max came to find our Sam. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope this video either fit in with your own final thoughts on the last episode, or brought you to seeing the story's ending another way.